Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is the NFL edition of Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over all the Super Wildcard Weekend games in the NFL, starting with the Saturday games, ending with Monday Night Football. If you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to put your NFL picks in the comment section below. We had an awesome regular season. Thank you guys so much for your support this year. Our final record was 154, 107, and 9. So 154 wins, 107 losses, 9 pushes for 59% win rate and plus 36.3 units. We had a great season in the NFL, only 4 losing weeks out of all 18 weeks in the regular season. So it was an awesome season. Hopefully you guys made some coin yourself. And if you're looking for my best bets, you can always find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the playoff games. Not as much as we had in the regular season, but still a ton of value on the board. Let's talk about it. Here are the games for Super Wildcard Weekend. First up, we go to the NFC playoffs as the Seattle Seahawks take on the San Francisco 49ers. This one's going to be Saturday at 4:30 Eastern on Fox, and the Niners are currently 10-point favorites. Total is at 43. Now, San Francisco won the NFC West Division with a 13-4 record. They were 8-1 at home this season and had one of the best defenses in the NFL. On the other side, we saw the Seattle Seahawks, a team that not really many people expected, including myself, that would make the playoffs, similar to the New York Giants. But the Seahawks won 9 games. They were 9-8. They were 4-4 on the road. Now, they did lose both meetings between them and the 49ers this season in the regular season. The first game was week 2 of the season, 27-7 final score in favor of the Niners. And then the second game in Seattle, primetime game on Thursday night, it was a 21-13 final score. So Seattle's offense, only 20 points combined in those 2 games, and in both games held under 300 total yards. The San Francisco defense had a good game plan for the Seattle offense, and we saw down the stretch the Seahawks really relied on that backfield and their strong run game as they ran the ball over 30 times each of the last 3 weeks. But against this Niners defense, this run defense that only gave up 78 rushing yards per game and 3.4 yards per carry on the season, I don't think Seattle's going to be able to do too much on the ground here. Now, I will say, Seattle was not necessarily known to be a great defense. Even in the beginning of the season when they were winning games, we saw in the first 5 games for Seattle, the Seahawks were giving up over 350 yards in each of those ball games. But as the season got really dicey for Seattle and they needed to pick up wins, and including their final 2 games against the Jets and Rams, that defense really picked it up. The final 3 weeks of the season, under 300 total yards allowed, and the final 2 games of the season against the Jets and the Rams, both must-win games, the Seahawks only gave up 22 points combined. So you got a rookie quarterback in Brock Purdy for the Niners. Don't think he's going to be looking to do too much in this game. We know San Francisco also really relied on that ground game. I expect both teams to run the football quite a bit, chewing the clock quite a bit in the meantime, and both defenses in great form, both doing pretty well against the run. I'm going to take the under in this Seattle-San Francisco matchup. Next up, we go to the AFC as the Los Angeles Chargers take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. This one, 8:15 Eastern on NBC. Now, the Jacksonville Jaguars were winners of the AFC South this year with a 9-8 record. They were 5-3 at home this season, and this was a team that started the year 2-6. They really were struggling on the defensive end, and even their offense was inconsistent. But Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars picked it up at the right time. They won their last 5 games of the regular season, including 3 divisional wins, 2 wins over the Titans, which was the team that was red hot at the beginning of the year in the AFC South. But the Jaguars found their way back in the playoffs for the first time since 2016, and now they're a home team in this one, but they are the underdogs as the Chargers are 1.5 2-point favorites in this matchup. Total is at 47.5 for the Chargers. They went 10-7 in the regular season. They were 5-4 on the road. But when you look at their home and road splits this year, they definitely played a lot better defense at home, and which is natural for most teams. You're going to expect that. But away from home, they gave up about 360 total yards of offense compared to only about 330 at home. They also gave up 5.8 yards per carry on the ground to opposing teams when they were playing away from home. 156 rushing yards allowed. That's pretty scary when you look at this Jaguars team, a team that liked to run the football quite a bit with a solid ground game and a good offensive line. Now, Trevor Lawrence certainly was better in the second half of the season than the first half, so we can expect the Jacksonville Jags to throw the ball quite a bit as well. But Travis Etienne, although he had issues taking care of the football and having some turnover issues, he still ran for 5.1 yards per carry this season. I do think against this pretty weak Chargers run defense, the Jacksonville Jags are going to be able to move the football pretty consistently behind the home crowd. You also look at the Jaguars defense. This was a defense that was not very good at the beginning of the season, but as the season got important, and as like I mentioned, they played those divisional games against the Titans and Texans, the Jaguars defense really stepped it up, and in the final 3 games of the year, holding opponents to under 315 total yards. In the final game of the year, they were able to find 4 sacks, something that the Jaguars were not really able to do much of the season, was put pressure on opposing quarterbacks. So the defense and overall the whole entire team for the Jaguars got really hot at the right time. Now you get a home game here against the Chargers defense, and I want to mention, the Chargers really didn't have to play their starters in the final week of the regular season against the Broncos. They kind of, they had a little bit to play for in terms of seeding, but not much. They played their starters both on offense and defense for a majority of that game, and you gave up 31 points defensively against the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos, an offense that's been abysmal all season long. You gave up 471 total yards, 5.7 yards per carry on the ground, 205 rushing yards, and now you go on the road against the Jacksonville Jaguars at full strength, and Mike Williams a little bit banged up in that game against the Broncos. I just think the Jaguars are the better side. They're the home team here. Not getting a lot of credit, but give me the Jaguars in this one. I'm going to take them plus the points. Next up, we see the Miami Dolphins taking on the Buffalo Bills. This one's going to be Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern on CBS. Now, it was just announced that Tua Tagovailoa is going to be out for this game. He was ruled out. So the Bills were 9-point favorites, but now they're up to 13-point favorites, and this line could still move, and the total dropped from 46.5 down to 43. We saw a lot of times in the regular season, starting quarterbacks go down, backup quarterbacks take over, and the lines move because of it. We saw plenty of times the lines move way too much, and we got a lot of value with those backup quarterbacks, whether it be Cooper Rush for Dak Prescott in a game against the Cincinnati Bengals where we saw the line move about 10 points, and the Cowboys won the game outright anyway. Whether it's been Tyler Huntley for the Ravens or Gardner Minshew for the Eagles, we've seen a lot of these backup quarterbacks, Brock Purdy for Jimmy G, a lot of these backup QBs take over and cover the number, if not win a lot of games outright. So I don't think the Dolphins are going to win this game. It was going to be a tough spot for the Dolphins, no matter who is at quarterback. This is a very good Bills team, a very tough place to play, and I expected the Bills to win this game no matter what. But now you're getting almost 2 touchdowns, and by game time, you may be getting those 2 touchdowns if this line continues to move. I think the value's on Miami. We saw last week with the backup quarterback, really the third-string quarterback in Skylar Thompson, the Dolphins found a cover and a win in the most important game of the season. They needed to win that game. At the time, the Patriots lost to the Bills anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered, but they still won that game and covered, and thanks to a little bit of a safety at the end of the game in the laterals. But Miami, I still think, is good enough defensively to at least hang in this game and keep it respectable. The offense also has plenty of playmakers outside the quarterback position. Obviously, if you're the Dolphins, you want to see Tua in there, but I still think you're good enough here to at least cover the number, make this an interesting game, but I still think the Bills win it. So give me the Dolphins plus the points. The Bills win, Dolphins cover. Next up, it's the New York Football Giants taking on the Minnesota Vikings. This one's going to be 4:30 Eastern on Sunday on Fox. The Vikings are 3-point favorites. Total is at 48.5. Now, this is a rematch from the regular season as these two teams only played a few weeks ago. It was a 27-24 final score in favor of the Vikings, but the Giants covered the number in that game. They were getting about 3.5, 4 points, and when you look at the total yardage, the Giants outgained them 445 to 353. It was one of the best games of the season for Daniel Jones, who had over 300 passing yards. He threw the ball 42 times. The Giants also ran for 6 yards per carry on the ground. And we don't see Daniel Jones throw the ball more than 35 times very often. We didn't see it more than a couple of times this season. But when you're playing a team like the Minnesota Vikings that struggled so badly against the pass and the secondary really struggled down the stretch, it really isn't that much of a surprise. The Vikings at one point gave up over 300 passing yards to 5 straight quarterbacks and 6 of 7 teams that they played in the second half of the year. And it wasn't even like they played the toughest of schedules. You look at the final games that they played in the regular season: the New England Patriots, the New York Jets, Detroit Lions, Indianapolis Colts, the New York Giants, Green Bay, and Chicago, and even down the stretch of the final few weeks of the season, giving up quite a bit of yards on the ground to opposing running backs. So I worry about this Vikings defense. It was not in good form in the second half of the season. They gave up quite a few points per game, yards per game as well, especially through the air. And now you have a Giants team that's playing with some revenge. Not a very experienced team playoff-wise, but they're very well coached. I can't trust the Vikings at this number. I just don't want to lay points with this Vikings team with this bad of defense. And Kirk Cousins, we know, has struggled in these big game moments, these primetime games. So give me the New York Giants here plus the 3 points. I think they have a good shot of winning it outright. And the final game on Sunday for the NFL playoffs is going to be the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. This one, 8:15 Eastern on NBC. The Bengals are 7-point favorites. Total is at 41.5. Now, the biggest question mark in this game, it's why it's probably the toughest game to handicap right now, is the fact that Lamar Jackson is questionable and things are not looking very good, the last I've heard, on Wednesday afternoon. And that's why we're starting to see the line rise quite a bit. The total start to drop and the line rise. So we saw this open out at Cincinnati -6. It went up to 6.5 and 7. Now I'm seeing some pressure on 7 at some books. I'm seeing some 7.5s out there as well. So things are not looking very good in terms of Lamar Jackson's availability. But, you know, like I said, backup quarterbacks, not too shabby against the spread this year. But for me, I'm looking at this game at the total perspective. I'm going to take the under. The Ravens' defense was really good this year. It was a really underrated defense, only giving up 19 points per game. And when they needed them most, the defense played very, very well. But the offense, like I said, without Lamar Jackson, not great. And we saw the Ravens' offense struggle quite a bit. Not a lot of games where they put up more than 20 points. In fact, they haven't put up more than 20 points since their game against the Jaguars. And that was quite a while ago in that game in Jacksonville, 28-27 loss. But you know, I worry about this Ravens offense against such a red-hot Bengals defense. The Bengals play so much better at home than they do on the road. You look at their home and road splits, at least defensively, you give up 356 total yards on the road per game, 306, so about 50 yards less at home this season for Cincinnati, giving up only 3.9 yards per carry on the ground to opposing ground games at home and 93 rushing yards. You know, I think the Ravens are going to be able to compete in this game. This is a very good defense, but for me, the under is the better side, so give me the under in the Ravens-Bengals ballgame. And the final game for Super Wildcard Weekend in the NFL is the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This one, 8:15 Eastern on ESPN, Monday Night Football. Cowboys 2.5-point favorites. Total is at 45.5. You know, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had a losing record going into the playoffs. You know, they won the division because the NFC South had a really rough year, but Tom Brady and this really good Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, I wouldn't count them out. That's for sure, especially at home, and especially against a Cowboys team that played a really weak schedule in the second half of the year and struggled quite a bit, in my opinion, in those games. Yes, they won 12 games, and yes, they won a good amount of games in the second half of the year, but you look at the opponents that they played and some of the stats that they gave up. In the Houston Texans, you were 2 touchdown favorites plus in that game at home. You only win it by 4 points. You needed a game-winning drive to win that game in the end. Then you play the Jaguars. You give up 40 points in overtime loss, 503 total yards allowed. Then you play the Eagles, you know, a very good team, but that was without Jalen Hurts. You had Gardner Minshew in there for the Eagles. He put up 34 points on your defense and 355 passing yards. You play the Titans and you handle them, but then you lose to the Washington Commanders, a team that had Sam Howell at quarterback making his first NFL start. Dak Prescott played in that game. He played a majority of that game. He went 14 of 37, 128 total yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The Cowboys' offensive line really struggled. They only ran for 2.4 yards per carry. You give up those 26 points to a rookie quarterback. I don't like this Cowboys team. I don't like the form that they're in going into the playoffs in a road game, your third straight road game against a very solid team in Tampa Bay on paper. Yes, it was an underperforming season for the offense. They only put up 19 points per game, but it's Tom Brady. He's home. He's getting points. I'm taking those points. Give me the Buccaneers plus the 2.5. And that's it. Those are the games for Wildcard Weekend in the NFL. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your NFL picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.